My guest this week is Nathan Gelgud. Nathan is a former projectionist, alt-weekly critic, and now the court cartoonist of cinephilia. He makes comics about the arts for the New York Times and Hyperallergenic when they let him, and his illustrations have appeared in other publications large and small, on tote bags and on t-shirts. Lately, Nathan has turned his attention to Reel Politik, a daily Instagram comic about a ragtag group of cinephile movie theater workers beset by the algorithmic indignities of the streaming age. Gripes about assigned seating and in-theater dining quickly lead to an open rebellion when they seize the means of projection, then turn their sights on hijacking the Criterion Mobile Closet. Gathered together in a new collection published by Drawn & Quarterly, the Reel Politik scripts compromise an absurdist, loving satire of all things art house with a Marxist-Leninist twist, an accessible primer on revolutionary thought, and a wry movie-mad antidote for troubled times. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Nathan Gelgud. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me.
I'm honored. We were talking before we started, because I'm trying to push off talking about Dancer in the Dark, because that's going to do my head in as long as we can.
Okay.
About, you finished this book. You said you went on a book tour. You come back, and I can relate to this, the feeling of it just being like, oh, that was that after so much work and celebration. I know, especially with graphic novelists and people who work in long form art, how do you deal with that?
I just cry until there's no tears left. And then after about 4 days of that, it was my first experience with that, really. Drawn & Quarterly, my publisher, who are just like, they've been my favorite publisher for so long. And just the fact that I'm working with them now is like really hard to, I still haven't really wrapped my head around it. But they were cool enough to send me on a little tour where I went to New York and Montreal and Chicago. And then we did events back home in Los Angeles. And I went to movie theaters. So since my comic is about movies, instead of doing a sort of like book tour at bookstores, we did it where I would like introduce a movie and then sign books in the lobby. Sort of a way of like getting people who are interested in movies, a certain, I don't want to say a certain type of movie, but you kind of know what I mean. People who are interested in movies. So that's how they get to find out about the book, basically. It's like a trick.
Right.
I tricked you into like learning about this book.
Oh, and you're showing such stuff as like as good as it gets, right? So like what were it was like it was some Godard. What were you screening again?
On the tour we showed in New York at the Metrograph, we showed Hi Mom, the De Palma movie, and Godard's La Chinoise. And in Chicago, we showed, it was actually in Evanston at Northwestern University, we showed Putney Swope. In Montreal, we showed Putney Swope again. Mm-hmm. And then back home in Los Angeles, it still feels weird to say. I still feel like New York is home, but I live in Los Angeles. And at the Hammer Museum at the Billy Wilder Theater, which is part of the UCLA Film and Television Archive, they gave us a whole series, which was amazing. So we've been showing... we showed La Chinoise, we showed Putney Swope, we showed Hi Mom, but we're also showing Peter Watkins's Punishment Park, Robert Kramer's Ice,
amazing,
Fassbender's Third Generation, the Godard Goran movie British Sounds, this movie that Nicholas Ray made with his students in the 70s called We Can't Go Home Again.
That's great.
And the Marx Brothers movie A Night at the Opera. I think that's it. So
wow.
Yeah. I'm proud. I'm really proud of that series and so happy that they had me do it. But yeah, to answer your question, 5 minutes later, I got walloped, man. I came back and it was just like, I had been looking forward to this trip for months, and of course anticipating the release of the book for months. And I even mentioned it like in therapy. I was just like, I have to not put all my emotional eggs into this basket of this trip and this book, because it's not, after this happens, life's going to be exactly the same. You know what I mean? Like nothing changes. It's so exciting to get the book out, and it was so exciting to do the trip, but then you come back. But like, this as a musician, I'm sure it's pretty, I found out from talking about it that it's pretty, it's a totally, I took solace in the fact that it's a totally understandable and normal common thing to come back and just feel kind of like, ouch.
Yeah, it's, it's astronaut stuff where you're just like, I'm back on Earth. I can't handle this,
Yeah. And you're this, and I'm a total like fiend for attention. And so like I spent all this time, like even in New York, I got to spend 5 days just hanging out with friends and stuff, not part of the book tour, which was amazing. But like even that part of it, you're still kind of the center of attention. Like Nate's back in town, so like people are prioritizing you,
right?
And then you're just, you come back and you're just dad, like they don't care.
Like the last tour I did, I realized I was so excited. We're starting our tour in Chicago. We're going to be in Chicago. I love Chicago. All my friends are in Chicago. And then I'm like not really in Chicago. I'm like loading in at a merch table, playing the show, maybe having dinner, saying bye, and driving out of Chicago to get somewhere. So it's a weird illusion of like, I'm seeing the country after a while.
Right. Not really.
No, yeah. So it's interesting because you're doing, is panel the right word? You're doing like a 4-panel, 6-panel thing.
Yeah.
For a while, it was like daily, and then it's compiled in this book. When you're thinking of a piece that's going to be just put up every day while you're doing this, are you improvising as you go? Like what the beats are going to be, what the joke is going to be, what the tone is like, or do you have it written out before you start? How do you do that if you're doing a daily strip?
The basic process is like what for me was when I first started, I was really intimidated by this idea of doing a daily strip.
Sure.
Because I'd never done anything like that before. I hadn't even written gag strips, like most of my work was not deliberately funny. And then now people will pick up the book and be like, yeah, this isn't funny either.
Oh, well, but, you mean like when somebody gets hit by the Blind Swordsman box set and someone says, is that a ouchie?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah, that's a good example though, because it's like, so we'll use that strip as an example, but when I first started, I built up a small backlog of them because I was like, I need to be simultaneously thinking of strips to do and having ones that are just in the bank that I can just post, right?
Sure.
But after a month of that, I wound up I had to come up with one every day. And so like, I'd make little notes like, oh, here's an idea. I don't know what the joke would be, or something where it's like, oh, I have an idea for a pun, but I don't know what the strip would be around that. So you've got these little things tinkering around. And then I would kind of spend the day with it knocking around in my head, while I'm like doing other illustration work or, getting the kids ready for school or driving them around or whatever. I've got this thing like, okay, the 6th panel is this punchline. The setup is this panel. So I would kind of have it in my head all day. And then after the kids would go to bed, I would draw it. And I'd kind of written it in my head, maybe written down, maybe taken some notes about like, if there's a lot of dialogue, I might write it down. So I just don't have to like reconstruct it later. I mean, so like there's this, and at the Charles Schulz Museum here in California, there's like this big quote on the wall from Schulz that's like the hardest part of being a cartoonist is coming up with ideas. And that's it, like if you come up with a joke, or if I come up with it, if I'm doing it every day, I know I just need to come up with an idea. And then once I have that idea, it's just the fun part of drawing it,
Right. But is there pressure? Like, did you see that terrifies me. Like I wouldn't even want to write a riff a day, even if it's not a complete song. I'd just be like, gross, like at a certain point. So,
but don't you think like, what if I'm not a songwriter or anything, but so I don't know what the structure would be, but like, even if it was, 3 times a week, you have to write a 30-second song.
Right.
Like you could live with a crappy 30-second song. You know what I mean? Like if it was part of this exercise of doing it with such regularity.
Sure.
That it would start to feel like, oh, that's the best I could do. in that time frame. And I like that idea that's in there. It's not a perfect song. It's not a song I want on my album necessarily, but it's like, and I think that doing a strip kind of has that built into its aesthetic where a reader can say like, oh, it's not going to be, a home run every time. It's a daily strip,
Okay.
And it becomes the act of trying to come up with a punchline every day. It really like, you have to let go of any preciousness about it, and that's so liberating. The thing is like, I just think that in a counterintuitive way, the more rules you can have for your art making, the more liberated you are in a way, because you're just going like, well, I told myself I was going to do it every day. So
yeah,
I got an idea. It's not the best idea. It's not my favorite idea I've had every day, that I've had all year or whatever. But I think it's an idea. I think there's something in this 6 panels that's worth engaging with. And maybe it's funny. At least you can identify that it was supposed to be funny. You know what I'm saying?
Well, also it's kind of intense because there are arcs in it, like the characters taken to Carlisle movie theater over. You worked in a movie theater, correct?
Yeah, I worked in a movie theater and video stores.
So I had this video store for, over 2 decades, and hiring people who know a lot about films was often a dangerous affair because they knew so much, but when it came to, maybe tact or trying to help someone find the thing they want. It's a weird, do you know what I mean? It's like such a weird thing. Like, what was your experiences in both those worlds, and how did it inform you wanting to do this comic?
So I worked at a couple. I worked at one in Durham called VisArt, and I worked at one in New York called Video Stop, which was this really old video store that had been there, I want to say since I think it was like one of the first video stores.
Right. Video Stop sounds like something that got in.
What are we going to call this thing?
Yes.
Yeah. It was on 3rd Avenue and 26th Street, kind of like in a nothing neighborhood. I was supposed to work at Kim's when I moved to New York, but the friend who was supposed to make that happen failed me.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
I'm so sorry. I love Kim's. Yeah.
All those people were my best friends, the people who worked there, but I worked at this different video store. So I had this kind of weird existence, like kind of outside the cool video store where the clientele cared about movies,
Right.
But anyway, but my attitude about, I like those jobs, I like talking to people. I like people coming in and out. I like chit chat. So I enjoyed it, and I just kind of felt like, we're a small business. We're the good guys. Why would we not just try to be good at this and just make people feel happy to come in here and spend their money here, and let's keep this business afloat.
Yeah, I will tell you this. One of my employees, somebody came in and wanted a film about animals, and they told them to rent Baxter. So I had employees sometimes I was like, you gotta read this person. They were looking for Babe, and you're take Baxter, the dog that's going to kill.
That was on purpose, though. That clerk was trolling that.
Oh, totally. They did not last long because they were unhappy, So.
Yeah. I just feel like, why be a jerk?
Yeah, totally.
Why? It's such a waste of your life. I don't know what it's like now, but for me, everybody I knew growing up, we all worked those kinds of jobs. We all had whether you worked in a record store, a bookstore, a video store, or even worked in a restaurant,
Kinko's.
Yeah, totally.
I remember going in to be like, hey, I got to get my show posters done. I go to Kinko's and someone goes and prints them for me.
Yeah.
That was a job.
So I think you were kind of asking how it informs the strip, and it just, it in a ways Reel Politik is a lot of things, I hope, but it's also kind of like a workplace comedy. And if you've worked those jobs, I feel like it's pretty transferable. You've had that experience of feeling like being rude to the customer, or feeling like you want to, or even, wanting to kid around with the customer, or feeling like you had to drag yourself to work that day. Why am I here? What am I doing with my life? Or my friend Sean, when Video Stop closed, my friend Sean was like, it's kind of good that it closed, because we would never quit these jobs.
It's so
you know what I mean? Like we would just do them forever.
Yeah, it was weird closing down my store because at some point my wife was like, "You've called me 7 times today. You're so bored." Because I was like, "I'm going to close it on the anniversary of our store." And she's like, "Why? Like, why are you waiting?" Like,
Yeah.
you know, and the minute I put up the closing sign, it was really freeing. I'd done it for so long. And it, walked away debt free, had an amazing sale. I let everything go at the same price, whether it was rare or not. I just like, let's do it. And we had a party at the movie theater across the street, and it was really lovely. But, kind of what you were talking about earlier, it's so funny, this thing where you see people 3 times a week, the minute that goes away, like, it's just the legacy's gone. It's fleeting. Like, I was the video store guy. I'm not defined by that anymore. It's really amazing. Like when you can walk by people and you're like, "Oh, that's a customer." And they just are like, "I don't know you."
I remember I got kind of depressed like in the months after the store closed, and I realized it was and I got a job at BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, which was just like an office job. It's the only office job I've ever had. And like, I realized that I had gone from talking to 50 to 75 to even 100 people a day to talking to the same 4 people every day, you know? And that it kind of like reinforced what I was saying before. Like I enjoy that. It was social to me, even the people coming in, some of the people coming in and out were like total weirdos. It's like fun to be around those people.
Oh my God. Yeah. It ranged from a real life Greg Turkington from On Cinema type of character to these amazing families that you just saw grow up in your store. And then they're at the age where they're just really like, the children are now teenagers and they're trying to blow your mind with what they're bringing up. And I love that. I loved when they were like, "Yeah, I'm into this now." And you're like, "Yeah, great. And it was a video bartender is what I always said. People shared so much of their life with me because they saw me for, 10, 15 years, several times a week. So I knew the highs and lows of people's lives, marriages, divorces, deaths, births, everything. It was really wild. And people would just stand there and just share. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah. We definitely had customers like that, or like, you knew where they worked, or I don't know. It was a weird place too, because due to the fact that it was like one of the first stores and it was opened by these guys who like didn't care about movies. Like they were just like, this is the hot business.
Of course. Yeah. Now they would have gone into weed or crypto, but then it was they're like video store. That's where the big bucks are.
And so they just invented the way that it worked. So, but they never, and then as video stores became a phenomenon that everybody was familiar with, they never changed it to be like, okay, this is how you do it at a video store. You bring up the box, blah, blah, blah. Right. They never changed it. So everything was still totally weird. Like you didn't have to find the box. You were supposed to just come up to the counter and say what you wanted, which is insane.
What?
But you were supposed to just be like, "Do you have whatever, you name it, Die Hard 2?" And we would just type it in and look it up and hand it to you. I mean, there were boxes out on the floor, but after 25 years of there being no reason to maintain the flow of boxes being put in it was just complete chaos. It also made it kind of, to your question before about the clerk's willingness to like just be patient and nice. It means that like, you can't really send them out there to just browse because it's insane out there. So you're kind of like, whoa, what about or like you kind of like in a position where maybe like you're recommending something because they don't have whatever the thing that you asked for. And then you were supposed to pay when you brought it back.
Wow. This is blowing my mind.
I'm talking to the right person because I'll occasionally do this and people are like, but you're giving the proper response.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Which means you're just supposed to have a credit card on file so that if you drop it off in the off hours, we build a credit card, which means you have all these accounts with these defunct credit cards and you just have this stack of like people you're supposed to call to collect the $4 that they owe you,
Yeah, I can't imagine them when they were doing cash before they decided to do credit cards. They were, oh my gosh.
Oh, and dude, the credit card system was they return the movie, you scan it in, you don't scan anything. You type the serial number of the movie into the computer. That brings up how much they owe. You print that out. And when you print that out, it has their credit card number on the printout, like on one of those printers with the
dot matrix
fold on the side.
I had that too. Dot matrix. I had that too.
Yeah. You print out one of those, like a landscape rectangular strip of paper. You rip that off the perforation. Oh. You take that over to the little credit card keypad and type that in.
What?
Yeah. So your first hour of work every morning was bringing the box of returns in, typing in, print, rip it off, take it over. Crazy.
What about the pain of calling people for late films?
That was supposed to be what you kind of did all day if you were like a manager. That was the manager's job.
Yeah, that was hard. Like, I did that because I didn't want my employees to do it. I knew it sucked. And it was after a while, I'd take it really personally. I'd be like, "Hey, this is Chris from Clinton Street Video. You've had, you've had Whitey by Fassbender out for 40 days. I'm a small store, and often it would be like their first rental, right? I'd be like, and I'm like, you came in to rip me off, and now you can't come back." But then as the years went by, I just was like, I don't care.
But part of you is like the dude who came in to rent Whitey you're kind of like, you're one of us, man.
I know. That was what was so weird. The other thing that happened in the video store that I haven't told is that I am the only person in the whole universe that actually had a Y2K problem. Because my employee made a reservation into 2000 and the computer crashed.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's real. Y2K was real. And that's why I had a video store. It was like so funny. You say the dot matrix printer ripping things out. I'm getting all sorts of sensory things here. I will also tell you this. I have been in the Criterion Closet in real life. And I want to talk to you a bit about... Officially, yes.
Okay.
They were very kind. My band Eyelids, we were doing an album, and I saw this picture in Famous Monsters magazine of this old French mystery, and I was like, that should be the album cover. And we looked, and it was public domain, and so we made the album, and as it was going to be printed, Criterion announced they were putting the film out. I got a hold of them and said, "Hey, we're doing this. We're a really small band. What can we do?" And they said, "Listen, the director has passed away, and it's part of a different estate now. Let us talk to them and see what's up." And then they were like, "We never heard back from them. Just do it. Just go for it." And so we did it. They let us do it. And but then when I was in New York with the band, they invited me to Criterion, and I was like, "Oh, I'll be in and out in 10 minutes." And I was there for hours. They showed me the art department, and we were it was really lovely. But it was so funny when I got into the Criterion Closet, I panicked because I just started pulling stuff that I needed to replace for the video store. Not really what I wanted, but I was like, this Jacques Tati set is expensive.
No, that's the way you should do it.
And so that's what I did.
You should walk out of there with whatever you can sell on eBay.
Was there a reason why you wanted to like have them take over this Criterion mobile unit, or was it just for a laugh?
So the characters in the book hijack the Criterion Closet truck or van or whatever it's called. I couldn't not talk about it. When Criterion was like, "We're going on the road," I was like, okay, this is like tailor made for me. If I could have asked them to do one thing so that I could lampoon what I would have requested for them to do.
They're like, "We need a write-off. Let's go."
Right. Or a write-off. So I had to satirize it. And I am genuinely kind of irked by the Criterion Closet. And I didn't know why exactly. It just always bugged me. And then when I got into the heads of the characters, who are these sort of like dilettantish Marxist-Leninists, I realized like, oh, the Criterion Closet is just a commercial. And it's the methodology of the commercial is to present consequence-free binge shopping. So it's like this fantasy.
It's true.
They're presenting this fantasy of walking into this little room full of all these great movies and walking out with a bag stuffed full of things. Where as a viewer of one of those videos, wherein your surrogate is like this famous person,
right?
You know, and so the whole thing is this kind of icky fantasy, you know, and I mean the generous non-uptight way to look at it is it's just like, yeah, there are a bunch of great movies and there's cool people in there talking about them. What's wrong with that? But anybody who's watched a bunch of them, even if you're not prepared to go hijack the Criterion Closet truck, you know, like there's no way you've watched a bunch of those and not just been like, this is kind of dumb. And the thing that's odd and sort of awkward about the Criterion Closet is it's like this micro curation within a highly curated selection. You watch somebody go in there and I'm like judgmental about how they're just picking like these totally obvious movies. I'm being very confessional here because like,
no, I mean,
it's an obnoxious, my viewpoint about this is so obnoxious, but like, I'm just like, oh, really? High and low? Kurosawa's High and Low? We didn't already know about that one. Thanks a lot.
But you probably saw the Spike Lee version first.
Right. But what are they supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? Like everything in there is something we already know. So it's like, that's another reason to just become, what is this exercise? Like, that you're going to, if you're watching those videos, you already know. Like, I stopped watching them because it just was like, I'm too old to hate watch, you know? Like, Willem Dafoe is in there. There's one great moment in all of those is like Willem Dafoe, like pulling Last Temptation of Christ off the shelf and going, do you recognize this man? I mean, that's all you can do is just like be silly with it.
Right. Oh my God. That's great. So, Nathan, I want to confess to you, it's very interesting. When I've told people that we're going to be talking about Dancer in the Dark, the reactions I get from people are like, oh God. Like, I saw this in the theater, never saw it again because it was a lot. And I'm one of those people that like, if I'm going to see a movie and a trailer comes up for something I'm interested, I'll leave because I kind of like to not know anything about it.
Yeah.
And one of the crazy things about this film, on the poster, it says, in a world of shadows, she found the light of her life. And you're like, what? Like, it's so, but did you see this when it came out? Like in 2000?
I did. I saw it. I think I saw it. I know I saw it in New York. I wasn't living there yet. My friend Robert Greene, who I think you've had on the show, had seen it and was living in New York. And I remember after the movie kind of like looking for a payphone to call him and like talk about it right away.
Yeah.
And I also have not seen it since then.
What is it about that?
So I was thinking about that, preparing, because I was preparing to rewatch it for this, and I was like, yeah, what? And I was nervous about watching it.
Me too.
And I realized Von Trier was just a giant to me. Like,
me too. I had a poster of The Kingdom on our wall at the video store.
That theme song from The Kingdom, do you remember? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Kingdom. Amazing.
Yes.
So great. You should cover that. You should just come out to that. Banger. That's what I would say if I was younger. It's a banger. So Von Trier was maybe even like not even just the filmmaker, but the artist of my 20s who I was watching him do. I knew I was watching someone do something that was going to define something about that era of that art as it happened. When I watched Breathless for the first time, I still had that mind-blowing feeling of like, what is this? But I'm also doing it 40 years after it was done, and I'm able to see everything. I'm able to process that, it influenced things, and our idea of cool comes a lot from that stuff. But watching Von Trier was like, Well, I guess I could almost compare it to like also like listening. I was like a huge hip hop head as a teenager. So like listening to early 90s hip hop and just being like, the Nas album is going to come out. Like, when is the Nas album coming out? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
This is going to change hip hop, you know? But it was a similar thing where like movies had become my life. And there was this guy who was making these movies, and he was in this collective called Dogme 95 where they had a manifesto. And like, when do I get to see those movies? And of course, this is at a time when like certain movies were just like impossible to see. Like,
yeah, what ones had you seen up to this point?
Breaking the Waves was enormous to me. We watched it in Joe Gomez's class at State. Me and Robert Greene were in this guy, Joe Gomez, to whom Reel Politik, the book, is dedicated.
Oh, nice.
He showed it, I think, either as part of his European cinema class or maybe even his subversive film class. I'm not sure. No. He taught a spirituality in film class. And he taught Breaking the Waves in that for obvious reasons.
Yes. Oh, wow.
And that movie was enormous to me. And I wrote a paper about it. And I just was just like, that was like it to me. Like Breaking the Waves was just like the thing to me. And again, it was like, I didn't have other movies that spoke to me that way that were like new movies, you know? Oh, yeah. And then Robert left North Carolina and worked at Kim's and came back on a trip and brought the VHS of The Idiots just so that I could watch it.
I had a bootleg of The Idiots on VHS in the store. I had never seen anything like it at that point either.
I almost like queued it up last night after I finished Dancer in the Dark, but I was too tired. But I was
that's a good thing. You don't watch that film if you're tired. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Those were like, and I don't think I had gone back to the earlier stuff, the more stylized. That's a bad adjective, but you know what I mean.
Like Europa and things like that.
Yeah, I hadn't gone back to that stuff, and I still don't really. That stuff doesn't speak to me in the way that for some reason, like the video store Vizart that I worked at, like we had Element of Crime. And I think I just never watched it. I don't know why. I don't know. When you're a kid, you're weird.
Yeah. Well, can we talk a bit about Dogme 95?
Yeah. I mean, this was like an enormous thing to me. Dogme 95 being this manifesto that, who was it? It was Von Trier, Winterberg, and maybe the guy that made Mifune. Whose name escapes me. I don't remember all the participants, right?
Yeah.
But they wrote this manifesto about how to make, that you had to make a Dogma movie and get a Dogma certificate. You had to make movies under the following conditions. And it was like, I don't remember them all. Do you?
Yeah, I have them here. Shooting must be done on location. Props and sets must not be brought in. Sound must never be produced apart from the images or vice versa. The camera has to be handheld. The film must be in color. Optical work and filters are forbidden. The film must not contain superficial actions such as murders, weapons, etc. must not occur. Temporal and geographical alienation are forbidden. That is to say, the film takes place here and now. Genre movies are not acceptable. Had to be filmed in Academy 35 millimeter, and the director must not be credited.
I mean, I'm like so excited. Just you reading that, I'm excited again.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
First one I saw was the Celebration.
Same. I saw that on a trip to New York at the screening room, and I went up to I think it was my first time going to New York with my friend Bob. We drove up from North Carolina. We like went to his friend's apartment to put our stuff down, and then like we opened the Village Voice, and we were like, there's a dog, one of those Dogma movies is playing at the screening room, and if we leave right now, I think we'll make it. And like we ran to the theater.
Oh, that's so good.
And we like sat down as it started. It's exhilarating, you know, like, and then just watched this movie that was, you know, that blew us away.
I love that film, and I was always recommending it at the store. And if you haven't seen it, The Celebration is just brilliant, whether it's a Dogma film or not, you know. But the limitations of the film are just beautiful in it.
And one super important thing we haven't mentioned about this is that this is the moment when mini DV cameras became a thing. Like this is when that was happening. So where you could go buy a camera and make a movie. I mean, it sounds crazy to say now, almost, because things moved so rapidly after that. But this was like a huge deal. And like, I think I remember like maybe Roger Ebert or somebody, double check me because I don't know, but like saying like, well, now basically saying like the gatekeepers, there's no gatekeepers anymore,
Right. It's over.
Like anybody can make a movie. But like, think about being in your early 20s, being really excited about movies and this technology coming out. And then meanwhile, this guy, Lars Von Trier, is part of this collective that's written a manifesto basically saying that you should make movies the way that an amateur 20-something, can make that. You can make a movie under those conditions. It was basically saying like filmmaking should be made the way an amateur can make films. And there's even stuff about that in the Reel Politik strips. I think the strips that came after this first collection deal with some of this, but some of these ideas about filmmaking as an amateur art form. But so that was, I just kind of put that together as you were reading the manifesto and thinking about myself as like a 20-year-old hearing that and realizing like, oh yeah, this was a permission slip. This was like such a generous act. It was saying like, go for it, go do this. Like, don't make stuff that's like that's with people like where you need special effects or where there's people, or even where you need sets or where you need anything. Like, in fact, we demand that you don't have any sets and that you don't have props and that you don't go buy costumes and that you just make it however you can make it with what's right in front of you.
Breaking the Waves, The Idiots. And this, he kind of wanted to slide into Dogma 95 with this film, but it's a genre film. There's costumes, there's music, there's a weapon in it. You know what I mean? But I think initially his heart was like, oh, how can I do this? And then he realized, I mean, originally it was going to be called like taps and it was going to be like wall to wall music, like, and very old style choreography, which is just awesome that he got Vincent Paterson to choreograph this film, who'd done like Michael Jackson's Thriller and Express Yourself and did stuff for Aphex Twins. Like, Lars Von Trier eventually was like, I need to find someone who does modern stuff to do something old. He's not finding the easiest way to make something, which is what I always liked about him, is that he seemed to be putting obstacles in front of making his work.
As I talk about Dogma 95 as this liberating thing, in a way, it's also a huge obstacle because it's saying basically every way that you can sell a movie, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like for someone who's 20 years old and not really thinking about selling a movie to Sony Pictures, it's liberating. But in the context of like telling established filmmakers to make a movie this way, it's basically short-circuiting every method that they have to get funding, right?
Right.
It's a genre movie. It's a period piece. It's got guns.
Yeah. And, this has got, Bjork in it, like that's a bankable thing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at the time feeling like it was important in the way that a young, you do in your youth to point out that like, this was an idea that like, this was a way to make a movie. And then you'd start your movie, if I recall correctly, you'd start your movie with like your Dogma certificate that you'd been certified. It had been certified. The idea wasn't that then a filmmaker only makes movies that way. It was the idea that like you could make your Dogma movie, and this is how you had to do it. So yeah, Dancer clearly not that at all. And to kind of get back to what we were talking about how both of us have never seen it since the theater. I was talking about how huge Von Trier was to me. And so I think I got scared and when I saw Dancer in the Dark in the theater, I was completely blown away. But
yeah, me too.
I'm still this way to an extent, but especially when I was young, I would have been blown away no matter what. I would have chosen to be blown away because he was my guy.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I do.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was not going to go in there and not love this thing.
Right.
So I think that my nervousness about rewatching it was like, I had there was no way I was not going to champion this movie, And so I was going back now, as a middle-aged person who's more, I I don't have that ability anymore to kind of like trick myself into liking something,
Seeing it and not knowing anything about the production, like, oh, during the dance sequence, they used 100 cameras. It was really inventive, and they would just...
I remember that being written about.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
I did not know.
Oh, that's a 100 camera movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that it's just like, not 104. It's like 100 cameras.
Yeah.
It's like, so during the dance sequence, they would set up, in various places, in there, if it's outdoors, they'd have part of it on a train, part of it on a barn, part of it in the water. And then they would have a randomizer as well as something recording it, all these different things that they could switch back and forth between and edit from there. But what's really interesting is his editing choices, when he's making these films are like, when I watched it through the first time recently, I was like, I love the way he edits. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not like he's editing on an emotional cue, but the way he'll just like have someone just like barely in a frame and then edit into something else, it creates an emotion that you don't see very much still.
Yeah. It feels sort of observed that way. And there's also times where like there's one scene where when her son is riding that bike across, when they give him the bike, and like all the major characters are there like watching him ride the bike, and the camera just kind of drifts over, and what's the actor's name, the guy who's interested in Stormare, that's his name?
Yeah,
he's kind of trying to tell a joke to the David Morse character, and he's like, he doesn't get the joke himself or something like that. And the way that anyway, like it felt like an outtake almost. It felt like the camera just kind of drifted over to like people who didn't like. I remember that reading about recently, I found out that the reason Altman uses so many zooms is because he wants to set up all these characters in a scene, have them all doing things at once and sometimes talking all at once. And he doesn't want actors to know what he's focusing on. He doesn't want you to know if he's focusing on you or not. So he mics everybody, puts the camera back into a full shot, and then zooms in where he wants, so he can pick you up without you knowing that you're the center of attention. And it felt like that. It felt like the camera had just drifted over to like two actors chatting.
Oh, there's a lot of that. Even at the beginning when they're rehearsing the musical, and like Catherine Deneuve is like, you're trying to figure out her and Bjork's relationship. You're like, does she hate her? Is she impatient? Like,
yeah, she's patient with her throughout. But yeah, I totally forgot that the move that they're rehearsing is Sound of Music, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That they're doing an amateur, like a community theater performance at the beginning, which is just like, it also like immediately made me aware of just how perfect Bjork is in this movie. That like the first minute I see her, not only am I supposed to buy that she's not, I don't want to say that I'm supposed to buy that she's not Bjork, because I don't think that matters. I think that like you can be completely aware that she's Bjork the whole time, and the musical numbers sound like Bjork songs. It's a fun kind of, I don't know what word to use, but it's a fun exercise that like, not only is she playing this, like immigrant working class, poverty, level woman, but she's like also like in an amateur music, you know what I mean? Like, she's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just such a, and it just works immediately for me. What about you?
It does for me too. And it's really weird. I mean, the big thing about this film after I saw it was Lars was getting a reputation as being kind of an intense director to work for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you knew. I remember that there was basically like he was emotionally abusive to Bjork.
She said, in my opinion, he had a more fair and meaningful relationship with his actresses after my confrontation, so there is hope. So she was just kind of laying it out there. And in the commentary, it's so amazing how like his producer, his camera people are all like, well, when we made Breaking the Waves, Lars turned to me after we were done and yelled at me because he said the experience had been ruined because of the camera operator that I picked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're kind of used to taking it and understanding like, oh, he's kind of a child, it seems like at times, like with his frustration. In the commentary, Lars Von Trier is very careful to say, we did not get along. And and he's like, I wish we had, but like she did not enjoy this either. And the scene at the end where she's in the cell and kind of singing out of frame.
Where she's like standing on the bed.
Yes. He was like, they'd set up 100 cameras in there and she knew exactly where to be where she wouldn't be filmed very much. She was not supposed to be emotional in like the scene with David Morse and the, confrontation and the shooting. And he's like, but she was so frustrated and angry with this film that it just all came out.
Yeah.
Because what was really interesting, and it's why I watched it a third time, is there were some extra things where in the commentary, they would just kind of stop his talking and put in a point of how he directed her in that scene with David Morse where she shoots him. And he's like, say this. And then she says it. He's filming. So he's moving around her and he's kind of like, he says he'd like put a hand on her shoulder and move her in and feed them lines. It was almost like badgering in a way. Like it was a really weird way to direct too, because it was learn the script, forget the script. Even the house that they did the dance in after he shot, they had to get in the house before they could start making up the dance thing there because it's a real house. So there were certain times where they were like, okay, but you also need to learn these dance moves real fast. And, David Morse is not a singer or a dancer. And it was just it was exhausting is, I guess, the way I'm going to say it. But there were times where, the producer would be like, Bjork would not show up for 3 days. And then she'd show up and everyone would leave. And as a statement to her, it would just seem kind of like a lot of mind fuckery. She's very proud of the film, but she's never been in another film since then, which is very sad. Because you believe where she's come from. You believe that she is losing her sight. You believe that she's obsessed with movies. You understand why she's ended up in America, because of cinema. And you believe that she's willing to give up, her life so her son can live, a better life. Yeah. And all from somebody who was just an incredible musician and somebody who had been in videos. This film, too, is really weird to think about a chicken egg thing, too. Like, she's composing the music and the lyrics for this story that Lars Von Trier is writing. And originally she wasn't going to be in it. And he's like, you have to be in it. You have to do this. It feels like a collaboration, even though, it is a collaboration, but it feels like a mutual loving collaboration, which it wasn't.
There's this really great little tease at the beginning when I think it might be like the first scene in the movie, or it's in the first few minutes where she's in the factory and she's like at the machine and you kind of hear the rhythm of the machines, and you think it's about to go into a musical number and it doesn't. It just cuts. I don't really have any insight about that, but I just thought it was really terrific how it kind of like makes you wait. I feel like we get kind of deep into the movie before we get the first number.
It is. It's way long. That's the thing. I remember it being way more song driven. And I also was kind of blown away that it's like an hour and 1 minute into it is where she opens the tin and finds out that her money has been stolen. And then there's still an hour and 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's a slippery movie in that way of like, what's going to happen when. I didn't really know. What's funny is that we can talk about why this might be. In my memory, David Morse bashes her head in I transposed it.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy? Like I totally misremembered the whole second half of the movie. I forgot about.
Okay.
Like the whole trial, I forgot about her in jail. I mean, as I watched it, it came back to me.
Right.
But like in my memory, David Morse is like killing her in the movie.
Wow, that's so intense.
It could be just because of the Von Trierian, the woman is the martyr. And of course she does end up being the martyr, but that's probably why I just switched it.
Some of my favorite things have been me misremembering something.
Yeah.
And I actually went to see Ginger and Fred by Fellini in the theater, and the projector broke, but it broke at a time where it felt like it was part of the film. And I was like, oh my God, it's so brilliant. Fellini at the end made it go,
yeah.
And then the lights came up, and then everyone sat there for a couple minutes, and then everyone got their coat and left. And then I see it later, and I'm like, oh no, there's another reel. And I was like, it was so much better. My version was better.
That's connects to the movie, because one of the themes of Dancing in the Dark is the whole thing about the last song or the next to last song, and how the movie ends with her singing a song called Next to Last Song. Do you remember how this movie looked to you in the theater?
Yeah, it's funny. This was an era where I often got motion sickness going to see stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember this being one of them. I think Heavenly Creatures was another. There was something where there was just something about the movement.
There is the motion of the movie, but another thing to remember is that there was this tiny era in movie making where filmmakers were making movies using digital cameras, but it was almost like experimental, and there was no digital projection yet. So anything that you saw that was shot on a DV camera was transferred to film.
Right.
And so there was this whole other step that made it look arguably cruddier.
So like Julian Donkey Boy, would that be another?
Julian Donkey Boy would have been transferred to film. Everything was transferred. I remember I used to get I used to like either sit in Barnes and Noble and read them, or splurge the $7 and buy them. But like I'd read Movie Maker magazine and Filmmaker magazine, Film Comment. I just loved Movie Maker.
Sight and Sound, all that.
Yeah. But Filmmaker and Movie Maker were more interested in, that was their market. Their corner of the market was to talk about filmmaking. And I remember reading in one of those, somebody talking about the medium is not actually digital. Your medium in this moment is actually digital to film. In other words, you're not making if you're making a movie for exhibition or distribution, you are making a movie for digital to film. So when you were shooting it on digital, you weren't really looking for what it looked like on your playback on the digital camera. You were shooting it and thinking about what it would then look like when it was transferred to film, because that was the only way people were going to see it. And it gave those films a really strange aesthetic.
Yeah, they're kind of smeared almost.
Yes, and they have a lot of noise in them.
Yeah.
But I think that like visual noise. But like I feel like watching it now, we lost that. So I feel like the movie that we're watching now is not the movie that I saw then. It looks a lot cleaner.
It totally does. And and it I think the editing and that smear that I'm talking about, and just the emotional rawness in it, it was like so visceral and upsetting. And this film has a lot of like traditional movie fake outs in a funny way with the plot. You get a little bit of hope, and then you're like, nope. No, you're going to get a little bit of a, maybe she'll, this love interest thing will happen. No, everything is just like really like kind of like flirted with and taken away. And then the songs add so much humanity to it. When I watched it this time on, my TV, I don't have a big screen, I have a really small TV. And I was just preparing myself to be destroyed. Mm-hmm. Like I was when I saw this initially.
It's effective, but it also, like, especially back then when I was talking about Brecht, like one of the reasons I was interested in it was because I thought the aesthetic of it was really strange and interesting. And also because it was just, you always knew you were watching a movie. Like it never gave you, it was a barrier to emotional entry. You know what I mean? Because it was so like what I am now watching something that you're just thinking about it the whole time, like how it's shot. And Von Trier, the way he makes movies, especially these movies that we're talking about, starting with maybe like Breaking the Waves, you're always thinking about the camera. You know,
but the stories are so affecting that I get lost in it.
Well, that's what happened to me in this movie this time around. Like when it does break through, it started to really break through for me maybe around, well, there's the murder, which is like, yeah, it's interesting that you were talking about how her performance in the murder was not what he wanted.
No.
Because like it's so she's doing so much in that scene.
Yeah. I know it's weird to think just having her not be emotional in that scene. It was a totally different film.
Yeah, and you really are kind of left a lot of times like, why is she doing the things that she's doing? And I don't think the movie leans overly heavy on the fact that she's just kind of like this woman child, even though she clearly is like dealing with some mental issues where she can't fully process things. There's something about the way that she acts in that scene that I kind of just believe like, yeah, I guess she has to kill him now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Which I guess is the nature of a tragedy, right? Like that the characters are, their fate is inescapable, you know? And then there's the musical number after that with the kid singing, "You just did what you had to do."
Just riding his bike in a circle outside.
Oh, man.
I know.
Which is just, when it switches to him basically, because he's the only one that she can give her permission, right? Like if he gives her permission, that's all she cares about in life, right?
Right.
And her whole hang up is about her guilt about having him, really. And there's just that line at the end, near the end, where like she's asked why, if she knew he would be blind, why she had him, and she goes, "I just wanted to hold a little baby." It's just like
watching it this time, some of the stuff that Lars Von Trier wrote, I was like very heartfelt. Like it was like I was kind of like lines like that. I was like really didn't remember any of that at all.
It's the dialogue in this movie and the story itself as well. And I think he talked about this in an interview. He has stripped away everything, you know, where like, that's the only answer that she could give, you know, like, because I wanted to hold a little baby, which is really the answer to like, why bring life into this miserable existence at all, you know? It's you know, there's a selfishness to having children. And it is, you know, because I wanted to hold a little baby. Okay, so you get to hold a little baby, and then this poor thing has to go through the misery of existence for the next 80 years. But it's just full of that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's ultimately why it ends up being so affecting, is because it just really, if it can say it in 6 words, that's all he's going to use.
Right.
You know?
No, it's so fascinating because when the film came out, it was very divisive. And I read this great quote from a critic in The Guardian, Peter Bradshaw, and he said, "Dancing in the Dark is the most shallow and crudely manipulative film of 2000. And then 9 years later, he says, "It is one of the worst films, one of the worst artworks, and perhaps one of the worst things in the history of the world." And to me, I'm like, the film worked. It's like,
first of all, I think he needs to broaden his perspective a little bit about the terrible things that have happened in the world.
Absolutely. But I love that, like, someone's just, because I think a lot of people went into this film because of Bjork. They didn't know Lars Von Trier.
Well, that's the trick, right? But that's the trick of all movies. Just to back up the thing you were saying about like any glimmer of light that you're given is taken away. Like her director in the musical, they have that kind of touching scene in the hall where even though she's clearly not very good at this, at playing this character, I don't remember the character's name in Sound of Music, but she's playing the lead. They're in the hall and she's telling him that she's going to quit. And he's like, well, you'll always be my, and you're just like, oh, this guy, like, he really cares about her, and then of course, like, he's the one that rats her out to the
Yeah, that scene is amazing where he's like trying to keep her around. He's like,
oh,
no,
my God.
no, we got the
Torture.
drummer now.
Oh.
And come sit down. Oh my God, that is just so beautifully done.
Because he's kind of like he's fragile about it.
Yeah.
Like if he was just like a pure, you know what I mean? Like if he was good at it, if he was good at keeping her there, it would be
it's clumsy as hell.
Affecting.
It was like, this, by the way, yeah, I forgot this.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then for some reason, this makes me want to talk about the prison guard. That actress who I recognize from like Seinfeld.
Yeah, she was on Saturday Night Live.
She was?
Yeah.
She was a cast member?
Yeah.
She's very reserved, and doesn't say much, but yeah, another interesting thing about this movie is like, there's clearly kind of a time jump between when she's sentenced and when we're seeing her in prison. Some things have happened, but he doesn't really do anything to like hold your hand through that, which I really liked. The rest of the movie's happening, obviously not in real time, but close to it. You're always kind of like, oh, this is the next day or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's clear that she's been in prison for a while and she's developed this relationship with this sort of stoic guard. And I think that so Bjork tells Catherine Deneuve not to tell her son hello from her. Right.
Yeah.
For some reason that isn't clear to me, but makes sense to me. And then the prison guard walks her back to her cell, and she says, and the prison guard's like, I have a boy of my own back home. And then Bjork goes, tell him hello for me. I'm about to cry right now. Bjork goes, tell him hello for me. And she goes, thank you, Selma, which I don't even know what she means by thank you, But I think that was the moment in that I was kind of talking about like the build up towards when my heart started breaking, Yeah. And that was the moment when I was just like, if I'm going to have any kind of like maintain any like ability to discuss this movie, I'm going to have to hold it together here, because there's just something in that moment that she's clearly thanking her for something else.
It's weird. When I was into Lars Von Trier when I was younger, so much of it for me was, it's not that it felt dangerous, but it was definitely provocative.
No, I know what you mean, though.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that's part of the reason why I liked it. That's why I had the poster on the wall. It was like, it defined me at the time. And so, and this was, like you said, at a time where there were directors who were still making work that were putting out things cyclical, like your favorite musical band or artist, right? Mm-hmm. And you're, like you said, you're dying for that to come out and see what they do next. I think I gravitated towards him because they were, it was not easy work, if that makes sense, Yeah. And I was just really surprised watching it now. A whole life later, also being a parent and going through the highs and lows of life, that this film, I guess I always thought Lars Von Trier was a little heartless.
Especially with Breaking the Waves and Dancer in the Dark, I think that there's like a huge gamble that he's taking where like you could really laugh at these movies. You know what I mean? It's very easy to find them ridiculous, and off-putting and sort of almost foolish, And then on top of that, he's doing a thing where he's like using a shaky handheld camera and he's using lots of like aesthetic tricks and And Dancer in the Dark, he's doing musical numbers that don't feel like fully finished musical numbers. And Breaking the Waves and Dancer in the Dark have very similar endings, which is that in Breaking the Waves, we get a heaven's eye view, which with literal bells in the frame, I think, if I remember correctly, which is it's just a genuine, it's Bess's point of view from heaven. I mean, and in Dancer in the Dark, we watch the camera go up after she dies because her soul is ascending to heaven. And these are incredibly sincere things, to visual statements, especially like, I imagine people like me or you, like forged in a certain generational crucible where sincerity was kind of, sincerity can be a hard thing to really deal with.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Especially when you think about when he's making these movies, he's sort of at the tail end of a dominant culture that was, forged in irony, and he's not doing that at all. He's making very sincere, forthright statements about this sort of naive, angelic quality of these characters. And the idea of what a savior is and what a martyr is and why those things exist. And he's making spiritual statements that he used to say. I think he used to say that he believed in like a Christian God, and I think he now says he's an atheist. But and even at the time he professed to be religious, there was always kind of like a snicker behind that about it. So I'm sort of contradicting what I'm saying in a way, which is that he was also being kind of a punk about it,
Yeah. At the end of the kingdom, he's like, hail Satan, it's like,
yeah,
flashes the devil horns, at the end of every episode.
So it's like hard to get a handle on, but and it makes me think about the way that Bjork just like moves in this movie. You know what I mean? Like her little, they're silly. It's the same thing. Like it's easy to laugh at, but I love it. So like she does these little jerky, tiny motions in the dance numbers. You know what I mean? Or like how to describe what I'm talking about with the way that she moves.
It's just movie. Very Bjorky.
It's like, yeah, really. That's it. When you say that, everybody knows exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the sad things that really changed the way I looked at the film was on the DVD. They show how the dances were made. A choreographer would sit with the music for months and think about it. Then he'd break it down with his assistant, just the two of them. And then he'd do a skeleton crew, and then they'd go on site and do it. But to see a one camera setup of like the factory dance, it made me almost sad that it was cut up in the way with the 100 cameras. There is so much incredible dancing and work. I mean, they're very traditional. Like, it's like people like in Young Girls of Rochefort, they just break into dance, what I mean? Yeah. And everyone in the street and around is doing this. But I kind of wish I hadn't seen it, because I always admired how it was put together with the 100 cameras, and it broke it abstractly and things leaving the frame and coming in at weird angles. And it just created this emotional, reaction in me. But to watch it, it was really an amazing, effective composition of dance.
Do you kind of mean because in a fuller master shot, you're watching all these different elements happen together at once?
Yeah, there's people on the machines jumping off, people doing all this stuff. And
it's actually happening all at once. It's not like a Kill Bill thing where it's right. Like the punch and then cut, you know what I mean? Where it's all just cuts and tricks. It's actually all happening at once.
And if it hadn't affected me, I'd just be like, oh, well, this is the right way to do it. But it was kind of amazing in retrospect to watch it in one take.
I know what you mean. I saw some of that stuff. Yeah.
And I was like blown away by just because they are doing it in one take too. That's the other thing is like, so when they're on the train, her jumping on, off, all the people moving with the different, implements. It's amazing to watch it just flow as one piece of dance. it would have been such a different film if all of a sudden it had been a traditional musical, like with like longer shots and more of a stage, and that, you know, this is not that film. But it was nice to see that you could go and see the amount of talent and work that went into it, because the choreographer was just fucking amazing.
There's also a thing though where he's very like, there's a few numbers where she falls back into the arms of people, you know, and it's clumsy is the wrong word, but it's not, he's not, the movements in the numbers are not crisp. You know what I mean? They're very like human, and they're very like, let's just do it and see what it looks like. My daughter like enjoys like Fred Astaire movies, and I've gotten really like into those as an adult. And back then, around the Von Trier time, I was also like, you know, like we should also just kind of mention Godard's musical Woman is a Woman, which I was thinking a lot about watching this, which has a similar kind of like not a great attempt at like crisp dance movements, but more just like it's almost like watch me try to make a musical rather than here as a musical, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just and kind of what you're saying about the level of you know, the choreographer who was working on it, the level of talent that you have in Bjork, and the amount of resources he had available to him, the looseness or clumsiness or humanness of the dance numbers is there on purpose. You know, it's very much like, I don't know, I was thinking a lot about this. I don't have a theory about it, but like all he really does is kind of pump up the saturation on those numbers. You know, like you almost like wonder, like he could do this. He could shoot those in film or something, you know?
Right. So it's like, oh, now we're in this.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're absolutely
now
right.
Now we're in the musical number, and then we'll go back to quote unquote reality. But at the same time, he doesn't do nothing. You know what I mean? He does make the colors deeper. He doesn't want you to feel like you're in a different zone somehow. Though I think at the end is the number in the musical number that she does, or maybe the two numbers that she does after being in prison. I think he does not do that.
Right. And you know what? The other thing is they shot a scene between, I think it's 100, how many steps is it? 106 steps?
107, yeah.
107. I was one off, people. Screw it. You get 107 steps, and to her, going to the gallows, there was another dance thing that they shot, and they showed it in this, where it's naked men screaming and rattling and hanging cages.
Whoa.
You know, Vincent Paterson, the choreographer, saying, I had to convince the dancers that this was not gratuitous, that the nudity would help in the thing. And so they have footage of Bjork moving through it. But they cut it. They're like, Lars Von Trier was like, didn't need it. It's like, it was supposed to be her getting freaked out. You know what I mean? And he's like, I mean, it sounds kind of dumb even just saying it, like compared to how clean this film is, to be like, oh yeah, now she's really scared. It's like, it's all there, you know, in her performance already.
Right.
So I don't think you needed a dance number or symbolism to be like, this is where she's at mentally right now. So I think it was a good call.
Yeah. This goes back to the thing I was saying about like loving him as a youth, that like, I feel like if he did that, I would defend it.
You're probably like, that's the best part.
Right. Yeah. What are you talking about? But yeah, it really, that prison stuff is really, I don't know. I feel like we're both kind of in awe of this movie, and it's almost making it hard to talk about. Like part of me was just like kind of hoping to watch it and have lots of problems with it.
Yeah, me too. I was ready not to be, to just have kind of grown, like, apart from it. Be
right.
Like, I don't need this. And that was me as a stupid kid.
Yeah. I was kind of scared of that, you know, of just feeling like, oh man, this is what I thought was like the pinnacle, you know?
Watching this recently, I just realized this was a different film than I remembered when I saw it. My memories of it were, it's too much to take in. It's too heavy. It's too bleak. And all those things are true, but it's also full of so much beauty and so much. I'd forgotten how amazing the performances were. I forgot how amazing the songs were. I forgot how incredible the direction was. And even though I remembered, where it was going, everyone I've talked to has seen it once. No one has seen it again.
Right.
And I just think that's really fascinating. So I think the awe of it is us kind of being relieved that it's as great a film as we thought it was back then, but that I have no problem being like, you should see it again. It's really a great film. Like, don't be afraid of this film, because I think people are.
And really, this movie ends up being, and I think it's important that even though it's only 2 moments in the movie where communism comes up, which is of course is relevant to would be relevant to the characters in my book, my strip. It really ends up being a movie about someone crushed by the need to earn money.
Yeah.
And it's about exploitation, and it's about her relationship with her landlord. It's about rent, and all the tragedy of this movie and the sadness of this movie. I think it's really it's an expression of the tragedy of living life under capitalism. I mean, I wish I could find a better way to say it. It sounds a little silly.
Well, there's a scene where she walks with her son from their trailer towards his house, and and she says to him, "Be sure to ask him about his money. He likes that."
Yeah. Right.
And I just thought it was such a great little insight into what she thinks. Oh, this is how it is in America. Like, they like to talk about it, but also the truth is, you go there and they're just talking about money.
And the time that they mentioned one of the 2 times that they mentioned communism, one is in the factory where her foreman and Deneuve are helping her thread these hair clips onto the cardboard so that they can be, this little piecemeal work that she does to earn extra money. And the foreman is just like, well, you commies do take helping each other serious, something like that, about just the 3 of them working together for the common cause of helping her. Essentially, it's like the movie defines communism in its most elemental form, which is just, we help each other. Again, it's almost like I was saying about how it strips away everything about the reason one has a child, despite the pain in the world. It strips away everything about all the stuff about how economic systems and the supposed complexity of an economic system, and basically says communism's idea is that we share with each other, and capitalism's idea is that we all chase money until you're, and people who don't have money deserve to die. I keep on struggling to find what word. I don't want to say it's subtle, because it's not, but it's also not something that's announced throughout the movie.
Right. No, you're right. They only mention it again in the courtroom against her.
Yeah. Even though it's also about a woman who won't spend any money on anything because she can only use it for healthcare.
Right.
The characters in the Reel Politik strip say the same thing oftentimes, is that, these matters are not complex in a way. Matters of fairness and exploitation are to dress them up in complexity is kind of a tool of the oppressor. The more complex you can make it seem, the more complicated, the more you can make it seem, the more inextricable you become from the system that you live in. And a movie like Dancing in the Dark is stripping everything away, and I think that's subversive politically. Part of me just feels like, I keep on saying this, but I just feel like I'm failing to express what it is about Bjork in this movie, because I don't. Just saying it's a great performance. I hate when people say Will Smith became Ali. I'm not interested in that, I'm interested. I think the whole time you're watching Bjork be Selma. You know what I'm saying? You're always watching you're watching Catherine Deneuve be Kathy, right? You're not, the point of this movie is not to trick you into thinking this is real. And I think the performance style is part of that. And I think that using Bjork, a non-actor, is part of that. And I think that like to say that she gives a performance that's like one of my favorite performances, just that isn't even what I mean. It's like this, whatever happens with her on screen is just something that like it's very unique. And I don't know how to express it.
Also, he made a really good fucking musical.
I know. These numbers are so good.
I didn't love musicals till I had the video store, and then I had my section, and it was one of the few things that I could play in the store that necessarily wasn't going to upset everyone.
Well, they're interesting in that they're this huge genre. I mean, not so much anymore, but for a lot of movie history, they were like these bankable big movies and an entire genre that's like a Brechtian genre. Like it's like you're never supposed to forget you're watching a movie when you watch these movies. They're all about like, watch the craft, watch what we're doing, watch where we put the camera, watch the set. The set's going to move now, you know, like do anything you want. It's like, it's such an interesting thing because that exists in such counterposition to what the way that people talk about movies in a popular way, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, the big dramatic movies that win Oscars or whatever are the movies that you talk about are like where you're emotionally involved and you've, like I said, it's like they became the character, which is like not how I watch movies, but I do watch movies the way that I watch every movie the way that one watches a musical, kind of.
Nathan, thank you so much for coming on. I always end the conversation with the same question, and I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. But today, I'm throwing that out the window. I'm doing something different. I would like to see if you could tell me what your character Birdie would say about Dancer in the Dark to someone buying a ticket at the theater in your graphic novel.
This is good. I like this. Probably tell them that it's the most emotionally devastating movie that you can see. But if we catch you crying, you'll go to a re-education camp for being a member of the bourgeoisie.
That is the right answer. That is what I had written down here, as you can see. Oh my gosh, Nathan, so good to see you. Thank you for picking this and hanging with me. I appreciate it.
I'm really glad that we did it because it wouldn't have occurred to me otherwise. But it actually turned out to be really like appropriate for the context of appearing for the release of the book. So, like you say, you kind of need a reason to rewatch this movie.
Yeah, and I will say, watch it, people. You won't regret it.
Now your reason to rewatch it is that we're telling you to.
Yes. And if you have a problem with it, tough.
Yeah. No refund.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show is a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye.